this is Ruth Sanderson again, and I'm showing you a finished version I've done of this picture. And now I'm going to work on the one that I've shown in the past two demos. And today we're going to talk about how to color hair. I thought I'd be a bit daring and give this Cinderella really bright red hair. So first I'm going over the light areas with a pale, it's really kind of a pale yellow orange. And again, I'll list the colors at the bottom of this this demo on YouTube. You'll see the colors in the list of credits. So I want these highlighted areas to be nice and light. So I'm going over the whole thing and going into the gray too, which is fine. You know, just getting layers of color on there. So I am going to blend this one with Gamsol too. And just like the dress, I'm going to be using mainly three colors. I might sneak in a fourth on her hair also, but a light, a medium, and a dark color. So there's another slightly darker orange. So it's a yellowed orange, this one. So I am going to use at least 4 colors on her hair. Actually, right now it looks like a very pretty blonde. I may regret making it red. You know, there are lots of different pictures of Cinderella in the book this is from, and sort of fun to try out different color schemes for her and different colors for her hair. It's not like illustrating a book where the character has to be consistent. Some of these pieces of Cinderella were just paintings I did that using a different model even. So that's why this particular Cinderella doesn't really look like a lot of the other pictures. It's indeed a different model, and this one doesn't appear in the actual picture book that I did of Cinderella. So I'm not being super careful here, you know. Notice it's like I'm almost scribbling, maybe going a little faster than I normally would for this demo. You know, I don't want people to be afraid of putting marks on these pictures. So really you can kind of scribble a little with these, and you know, the drawing underneath shows through, so it's sort of a mixed effect of different layered colors on top of each other. But we will be going with a darker color to create the red hair. So we'll go with a pale vermilion, which is sort of a very orangey red. I might be going a little too bright on her hair, but I thought, what the heck? Thought she'd be great if she were a sort of brilliant redhead. And I'm not being super careful about where I'm putting this, although, you know, I am putting it a little bit deeper in the shadow areas, but I'm not filling in every single one of those little shadow areas. again, if I were doing this, you know, to sell or what have you, you know, I'd probably be a little bit more careful and slow with my strokes here. So you can take your time with it. I just don't want this demo to be 2 hours long, as it is, or it's a series, and some of them are about a half hour each. So, you know, and in a way, I'm working a little loosely again to show that you really don't have to have fear here. You can just play and have fun, and you know, when we put the Gamsol on again, you know, all this will sort of blend together. You know, the highlights will still show, but put a lot of those missed spots, you know, will just blend nicely right together. So. So every once in a while I'm looking for, you know, a little dark area to enhance with the pencil. And now I'm going to use henna, which is not that dark a brown, but it's actually quite a perfect color for a redhead. And I'm going in and I am trying to find some of the dark shadow areas in her hair. You know, another way to do this is to go in with, you know, with this pencil first and sort of define all the shadow areas. You know, there's no one exact correct way to do coloring. You know, people find their own best way of working. So this is just a guide, you know, just to give you some ideas. You know, and probably you might want to be a little more careful than I'm being here. This is not sped up motion, I just work really fast. You know, and I'm, you know, maybe a little too sloppy here, but you know, I almost feel like I'm sketching. Not sloppy, sketching. So I'm trying to follow the, you know, the lines of the hair. And I guess because I did this drawing, I know how the hair goes, but, you know, you can imagine following the hair, you know, as it goes down. You just sort of follow the outlines of the locks, so to speak. And you sort of, you know, in this case, I'm for the most part trying to have the pencil going in the direction of the hair growing down. And I'm softening that edge between the shoulder and the hair. And the hair is going to end up being about the same value as that the shoulder of that dress, because it's the hair on this side is in the shadow areas. So this is actually going to be a good demonstration later of merging things into the shadows. You know, often you want a shadow area in a painting to kind of almost disappear. So it's like her hair is going to merge into her shoulder, which is sort of going to merge into the background. And that's a technique, I guess, I don't know, I guess it's been used forever, old masters, etc. You know, where the shadow area isn't really that important, so you don't want to draw attention to it. So you just sort of keep it all sort of soft and dark and blending together. Okay, so I spent a little more time doing some extra layers with those pencils on the hair, and now I'm going to Put a little Gamsol on the very edge. I'm not really going out to those long thin hairs. There's no reason to really. Just sort of giving the light areas a little blend first, and now I'll blend the rest. And you see how nicely that sort of rough brown hair, or reddish hair, you know, you just lose all those little white specks, the roughness of the paper, created by the roughness of the paper and your colored pencil, and now everything will look much smoother. So you see the stub and the Gamsol really serves nicely to sort of merge, not completely merge, but you know, when you squint, you know, her shoulder and side of that arm kind of blends in with the shadow of the hair. Okay. So I'm going to demonstrate probably a little ahead of time. Normally might not have done this, but in this order. But I wanted to show you how to blend the character into the background. Now that you know, that shadow on the right side of her is now, you know, a little too light because, you know, her dress is, you know, a bit of darker. We use darker pencils. So if I take a dark brown, though in retrospect I might have used a light umber instead of quite this dark, but we can work with it. So I'm just adding a little bit of pencil here, and I'm going to do this quick showing you how you know, picture is unified by making sure that the lights and darks make sense for the picture. So the overall sense of the lights and darks. And so it would make sense for that shadow of the rock behind her to be darker than it was a minute ago. And remember, also the Gamsol is making the paper dark, so this won't dry quite as dark as this. And I'm going to end up, after this, putting a little bit more of a color, of a lighter color over a lot of the stones. Sort of often work back and forth. You put in a dark, you put in a, you know, medium tone, you blend it, you put, you know, you're just adjusting sort of constantly when you do a piece of art. So I'm probably going to go a little bit all over the place today with this. So here's ginger root, one of my favorite, what I would call neutral colors. And I'm just going to tone back that, that really the darkest dark, just to tone it back. Also, I really like this color to put on the gray of all the stones. It's just a nice, it's almost a warm gray. So going over the gray of the paper, you know, it kind of looks like a perfect stone color. You don't have to get too, you know, too involved with it. And in the case of grayscale, when you see stones, why not leave them mostly the gray color and just add, you know, maybe a little bit of something on top to change the color. I mean, you could sort of throw in, you know, even the color of her hair here and there, just, you know, to give one of the rocks a different color. You know, when you see rocks in a row in a stone wall, there's so much other color in it. But for today, I think I'm just going to use this one, ginger root. Nice neutral color. Neutrals are great to, you know, if you want to just tone down an area also. So back with the Spanish orange, and I'm going to see if I can get a couple of highlights in there. Lighten up that area. And this is a case where, you know, when the picture's close to almost done, you also go back in and you add a few extra highlights here and there. And I'll probably end up going back in with a darker dark and maybe a darker brown and going into the shadow areas a little bit. She is very, very red, isn't she? So now now her skin is looking super, super, super pale. So I thought I would add a bit more peach to her flesh tones. Later I actually might add some warmer colors, I have to think about it, into her flesh tones to kind of almost pick up the reflected light of the hair. I might do that another time in one of the later demos. Okay, so I'm wanting to see even more highlights, so I'm using a lighter pencil. It's cream. Still keeping it warm. You wouldn't want to highlight red hair with a white pencil. You know, the highlights of red would be, you know, really pale. I mean, even yellow is pushing it a little, but I don't have anything more perfect than that. You could actually even use a flesh tone for the highlight, come to think of it. But my red is more real orangey red. So there's a bit more highlighting. If I had more time, I would go in and do more work on the highlights of the hair. But trying to keep this a reasonable time. So here's light umber, and I'm liking this now better than the dark brown for like the little cast shadows under each rock. You know, I'm always thinking whenever I'm putting detail in a picture, where's the light coming from? And again, the light's coming from the upper left in this picture. You see how her face is lit on that side. So the rocks each would cast, they would have a little cast shadow under each of the rock. But I'm going to outline some of them even a little bit, tiny bit on the top too, just to have a little bit more definition in these stones. Deepening the shadow a tiny bit. And this is something you might want to do, you know, when you're working on the grayscale, is, you know, just to give things a little bit more definition between objects or what have you. Because I am keeping these light. If these were dark, that dark gray would really show up and be hard to cover and make a good color. So, so this is all at a lighter value than the finished picture should ultimately be. You know, it's kind of up to the colorist to, you know, look at those shadows and go, oh, you know, that probably should be a little deeper. And that way you're doing the coloring. You know, the picture isn't doing it all for you. But you know, I feel this that working on grayscale probably is a bit more creative in a way, because it really leaves so much room. You're really kind of, you know, being a co-creator of this picture, a new version of this picture, by accenting certain things and what have you. So this is grade, I think it's called grade lilac, and this is also a really pretty neutral color, and it's working great here, I think, for you know, for adding a little bit of subtlety to that stone texture. So I'm using these two pencils and just you know, creating some really cool stones. And now I'm also going to go back in and redefine, this is the shadow area right next to her and there. And you know, sometimes it's nice to have the shadow actually be warm instead of cool. So I'm having that the middle grout be sort of this warmer color, and then up there the rocks are, you know, that grade lilac. So sort of an opposite effect. So I'm redefining the white grout lines between the rocks. So, on to the broom. It's a pale cream over the whole thing, over the handle as well. That'll be like the highlight of the handle. And then yellow ochre, the shadow side. You know, you wouldn't think that this would be, you know, a shadow. It's not a dark color, but compared to the light area of the broom, you know, it's darker than that very light straw color. And I know I mentioned it before, but warm shadows look really nice. So, and that combination of gray of the paper and then the warm pencil makes really a nice effect. Whenever I work on a picture, I'll often take the same color and put it various places in the picture, and that's another way that you unify a picture, by using colors in various places throughout the picture. And it sort of pulls your eye around, and it gives a very pleasing look. And for this picture, I'm choosing a basically an overall warm color scheme mean, I have got a little bit of purple in the rocks, but there is not going to be, there's going to be no blue in here, very little green. In fact, I think I'm going to make the hanging herbs here a dried out a dried out color with the yellow ochre. So this color scheme is called an analogous color scheme, which basically means using colors close together on the color wheel. So red, orange, yellow, you know, those are all very warm colors, and so that creates a unified look. You know, then you go off a little bit on that, but I wouldn't throw a bright blue ball in here, for instance. I'm keeping it all in the warm tones. But you could do this, the same image in a completely different color scheme. But you'd want to unify the colors in some way if you did that. I'm going to be using a lot of the colors in her dress in the bricks, for instance, later on, and that will help unify the color scheme. So I'm using a lot of the same colors as I did in the broom. It's yellow ochre. Sort of inventing the stripes a little bit here. They weren't that defined in the drawing, so I'm sort of making it up. And I'll go back in with a few more layers in between these clips, so that I'm not spending an hour working on each of these areas. So I'm giving you the quick and the dirty version. This pencil could be a little sharper, but I'm going to work with it. So goldenrod and henna were the colors I used for a few more layers on the cat. Gave him green eyes, little pink ears, and now I'm going to work on her, not sure what you call it, corset. I went over the stays with a very sharp, very thin, to outline them, to try to give a little more definition, because I want those stays to be lighter than the rest of the garment. So in this case I decided to put the shadow area in first, and now I'm going to go in with the goldenrod and make a light leather vest looking corsety. I'm being quite careful enough there, and I kind of went over the stay. So I just bought a white gel pen, and I'm actually eager to try it to accent some white areas, and actually the stays would be the perfect, those laces would be the perfect thing to try it on. So I'll build up the color here, and later on I'll probably go over it with Gamsol, but I'm going over a little bit harder instead of with all light layers, pressing a little harder here to get a more saturated color. It's fun to break the rules. You know, it's not as even as if you did very careful light layers, but with the Gamsol it'll sort of all blend together later. I'm going to add a little warmth to the shadow. You know, basically I want this to be a white garment. You know, and just like the gray, you can leave, you know, you can leave the gray close to gray and just add a little bit of accent to it. You can do the same thing with, you know, something you want white. It's like, well, leave the white of the paper if it's white. And then how you give it a very cool look is deciding what color shadow you're going to have. You know, the shadow of white you think is going to be gray, but really most shadows of white are so reflective. They can be anything from a warm gray to a very cool blue gray. So here I've decided to make you know, make that dress a nice warm with a nice warm shadow. And speaking of warm shadows, yeah, I could have outlined that with black, but warm shadows just always I don't know, bring more life to a picture. I guess that's the only way I can describe it. I just think they look better, so I always will be choosing, you know, a warm pencil to make a shadow. And the whole color scheme of this picture is obviously quite warm. So the only really cool pencil I'm going to be using is this this very pale lilac, but it's really a grayed lilac. So so it's just adding a bit of that opposite. You know, yellow and purple are opposite colors. But I'm not doing it in a bright way. I wouldn't want to put a bright purple shadow. So just a hint of that purple just adds a subtlety that I really like. I'm going to finish all the rocks. I won't finish them all in front of you. Sort of outlining some of them, giving, you know, making sort of an uneven, rocks are uneven, adding some occasional little like specks and spots and irregularities. It's always fun to do. Actually, rocks are one of my favorite things to draw. I really like drawing rocks. Rocks and trees. Just adding some imperfections here and there. It's really fun. You know, you could make this rock wall look like a totally realistic wall. The trick is to make things irregular and not have anything be, you know, exact. And then I'm going to go in and put a little, you know, if the light was coming from above, it would hit that little edge underneath those spots. And doesn't that makes it look real? And I've just done a couple, you know, really if you were, you know, you'd spend a little time and make these look like photorealistic rocks. Okay. So, see you next time.